Hey guys, this is James C. Carnib and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to add some detail and to sharpen your subject with 4 tools or features in Adobe Photoshop. The 4 things that we're going to use are going to be Camera Raw Filter, Smart Sharpen, a black and white layer with a clipping mask, and the Blur tool. So first, we're obviously going to start off with cutting out our subject. So I'm gonna open up this picture, Alvin Kamara, and I'm just gonna start off with cutting it out. So what I'm gonna do is cut out my subjects first, and I'm gonna place them on my canvas. I like to have all of the cutouts nice and placed before I start adding any details. So I'm just gonna do that quick, and then we'll regroup and get to the tools. Okay, so once you have your design or your art already in place, you have the composition ready, because for example, I knew that I wanted to have this subject in the back and I wanted to have the running one down here on the bottom right, facing separate ways. Once you have it all lined up already, that's when I normally start with adding these effects. So the first one we're going to do is the Camera Raw filter. The first step is to get the layer, right click and convert it to a smart object. This is going to let us add some layers on top, some filters on top of it without actually messing up the original layer, the underlying layer. So you're just going to right click, convert to smart object, and rename it. I'm going to rename this Alvin Kamara running. And then I'm going to start applying the filter. So click the layer, filter, Camera Raw filter. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit, just so I can get the whole picture in frame. And I'm going to start playing around with the basic tools. I'm only going to talk about these basic tools because these do a lot, and then plus with the sharpening and everything, you can play around with the other ones to add some more effects. I'm just going to keep to the basic tools in this video. So the first thing I do is I always play with the temperature or the tint. This helps especially when you're trying to match the shading of 2 different subjects. In these 2 pictures that I got, they kind of seem to be in the same coloring and the same sort of lighting, so it's not too much of a difference. Sometimes you get a lot of a difference, but I'm just going to play around with them depending on how I want the graphic to look, whether I want it cooler, more blue, or warmer, a little bit more goldish and yellowish. But I'm gonna kind of bring it down a little bit in the blue, and then with the tint, it'll give it either a purplish tint or a green tint. So you could play around with that also and kind of cancel out other colors, and I'm actually going to leave that at 0. Now the main ones I use from here is exposure, contrast, and whites and blacks. Those are the ones I mainly use, but I also use highlights and shadows. So with the exposure, it's just the overall brightness. It doesn't really attract any specific part of the image. It's just going to increase or decrease the brightness of the entire thing. With contrast, it's going to do the contrast of the colors, whether it's going to be it's going to have a big contrast between like the saturation of the colors, or if it's going to be a little bit closer together. I normally kind of put it a little bit higher up just to get a little bit more detail. Now, I mainly use whites and blacks. That's going to target everything that's white and everything that's black. Whereas the highlights are a little bit of the really, really white parts of the image, and same with the shadows. It's going to be kind of the overall darkness or the light darks of the image. So I don't really have any specific method with this. I just play around with it until I get a really good sense of what I want. But I do normally put the blacks down and the shadows down, and I put the highlights up, depending on the composition and the exposure of the image. Now the next tools I use are texture, clarity, and dehaze. These are all detail tools. These are all tools that are going to kind of either add grain, add more detail in terms of the shadows, or kind of take out some details with the dehaze. So with texture, when you bring it up, you really do get like a texture. You see a little bit more of what's in the image. So I'm just going to bring it up to about 20. And clarity does about the same thing. When you bring it up, it adds this sort of filter over the image. So I'm just gonna play around with that a little bit. I don't want to have too much of an effect. And then dehaze is kind of like contrast, but with the details. If you bring it all the way down, it's gonna make it lighter. If you bring it all the way up, it's gonna make it darker and make the details really pop out more. So with dehaze, you're only gonna want to play with this a little bit. You're only gonna do a little bit of adjustments depending on the image. So that's the first step, using the camera raw filter. So I'm gonna click OK to apply that filter. And if you see here, we've already made a lot of changes. You already have a really crisp image compared to the original one. The next thing I use is the Smart Sharpen tool. With the Smart Sharpen tool, you really just do just that. You're just gonna sharpen it up and give it a really crisp HD look. Now I have the Sharpen tool. In my Smart Sharpen tool, I already have these amounts presetted. I already have them. I use this for pretty much all of my designs. The reason I have a lot of tonal width is because I like to have a lot of that sharpness on the highlights and the shadows, and this is just kind of these are just kind of values that I came across just playing around with the tool and stuff like that. Sometimes I change them, but I normally stick with this. But my recommendation is just to, play around with the tool and see if maybe there's a preset you like, or sometimes depending on the design, you're gonna want to have a different look. So then I'm just gonna apply Smart Sharpen right there and let it apply. Now the third step is the black and white layer tool. I use the black and white layer tool to really make the subject pop out and to add detail to the uniform. So if you see here, the uniform is pretty clean. You have some dirty marks, but it is white for the most part. But I want to make sure that it's extremely white, super clean, very clear. So I'm gonna add the black and white layer and put maximum white. But I'm gonna hold the Alt key and make sure I clip it to the layer of the subject. So let's hide the back layer. And then I'm gonna click the layer mask and press Control I. So with Control I, what that does is that it inverts the layer mask. And now I'm gonna go with the brush tool on the layer mask, bring up the hardness, and I'm gonna color over everything that's white. Pretty much anything that's white on his jersey. So I'm gonna change the color of the brush to white to make sure I'm getting inside the clip mask, I'm brushing on what I want to have the effect. And I'm pretty much gonna do this along the entire design, along the entire jersey, anything that's white. So once you think you've gotten all the white colored over, go to the layer, click this little icon here of the actual layer, and then press tint. And what I do is that I'll set a really contrasting color for the tint, and that'll let me see where I've missed. I just use this as like just a general guide, and then also to see where maybe I might have gone over, where you see maybe I've missed these little white pieces here, so I'm going to color that in, but I might have gone over some black part here of the gold. So I'm going to use that to really fine tune the rest of the selection, or for example, I missed this entire bottom part of the jersey. So once I've used that tint to really fill in the little gaps of the things I've missed, I'm just gonna remove it. And now I have all the white parts of the jersey super clean, extremely white. You can tell the difference when you go like this. When you hide the layer, it really makes a difference, and it really makes the subject look a lot cleaner. So I'm gonna do literally the same exact thing. Another black and white layer, clip it to the layer below, Control I to invert the layer, but this time I'm gonna put maximum black. And then I'm gonna color over everything that's black. Perfect. Now, with that black layer, if you hide it and you turn it, if you hide the layer and show it, you're gonna see that a lot of the times when you're getting an image, the black on the layer, or the black on the image is gonna look kind of blue. So that can also be because of the camera raw filter. I brought it down a little bit, but it's not gonna make that much of that blue tint. It's just naturally how the light looks. Even on the face mask, it's gonna look a little bit bluish, and then once you turn that on, it's gonna turn it black. Let me just fix this up over here also. It's mainly because of the reflection of the sky, the lighting in the game, depending on where they're, especially for sports images, sometimes it's going to look a little bit bluish because of the sky. It's a little bit better. Perfect. So once you do all these steps, all these 3 steps of the camera raw filter, the smart sharpen, and the black and white, you're gonna notice like a pretty big difference in the original image to now. So if you hide all these layers and the smart filters, this is how it used to look. It's a little bit dull, not as much contrast and stuff like that, but then once you add the layers, you're really gonna make it pop, and then you're really gonna make it unify and in the same lighting when you add the white and the black and white. So after you have this done, I normally go back to the camera raw filter and I edit it based off of the new tones of the white and black. It kind of seems like it's a little bit more lighter than it kind of seems like his jersey and his pants are lighter than his skin tone, so I'm just gonna fix a little bit of that. I'm also gonna add some vibrance too, because with the vibrance it's really gonna, you see how it changes the color, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of that. Perfect. Alright, now the last thing I'm going to do, since I have this image in the back, I still need to apply those edits to that one for this whole graphic. But what I normally do is once I'm done editing the subject, I'm going to select all the layers, so the smart object with the filters and the black and white layers. I'm going to Control G, put them in a group together. You can name it whatever you want. And then I'm going to right click, convert to smart object. So I'm going to have all those edits together in just one smart object. Then I'm going to Control J, so duplicate the layer, hide the bottom layer, right click again on the top layer, and then raster size. So I'm pretty much going to make that an editable, like a flattened layer basically. That has all of the effects and everything into one layer that I can edit and manipulate. The reason I duplicated is that just in case, to keep the smart object version, in case maybe something gets messed up or something goes wrong along the way, you just have a backup. But I'm going to play around with the raster size one. So I normally name it raster size, flattened, edited, just some. I normally just try to put something at the end of it just so I know which layer it is. And then the last thing I'm going to use, the last tool, is the blur tool. So the reason I use the blur tool is when you're cutting out in Photoshop, especially when you have something against a background or another subject, you could really tell that there's extremely sharp cuts in some of the images, right? So I use the blur tool to add a little bit more natural look to it. Kind of when you're doing photography, you always have the aperture and the depth of field, and not everything is 100% in focus. Sometimes a shoulder or the edges of the body are going to be a little bit blurred because of the lens. That's why I use the blur tool just a little bit to brush around the edges and just to add a little bit more depth to the image. It makes it a little bit more HD. So what I do is I select the blur tool. I normally put the hardness around 50 because I don't want it too low, but I don't want it too high either. Strength at 100, and I'm going to just kind of lightly tap along the edges, along the sides. You see how it doesn't do that much, but it'll add a little bit of an effect. So I'm going to do it over here too. And I'm going to want it to be more of a blur effect on the sides of the image, and I want it to be less of an effect in the middle, because that's what I want to have pop out. I want the middle to be more in focus than the sides. I want his face to be more recognizable than the rest. So perfect. So if you see here, when I hide the, I'm gonna show the smart object layer that's under this layer that I'm editing, and I have the raster size layer with the blur effects on top. When I hide it, you could really see the difference, and it gives it a little bit more of a real feel. You can get a really crisp cutout, and then add some of the blur effects on top of it to make it look a lot more realistic. And that's it. Those are my 4 tools that I normally use for adding details and adding and sharpening up an object to make it look a little bit better, a little bit more realistic. Let's go over here and go all the way down to the original layer. You can add it right under this and look at the difference. You see, you get all those whites, all that black in, you get a lot deeper, richer color in it. You lose the blue, you lose the random shades, you get more detail. Even the gold in the helmet looks a little bit nicer. So that's it. Thanks guys. Check out jamesccarnib.com. I'm gonna have other videos up on this channel also. Subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Behance. Thanks for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.